They didn't lose a war. They lost everything. Their land, their language, their names, under a flag they never chose. The story of how Native Americans were removed from their land is not a tragedy on the side of history. It is the history of America. When European settlers arrived in the early 1600s, they saw land, opportunity, destiny. But this land wasn't empty. It was home to hundreds of indigenous nations, each with languages, laws, and stories older than the colonies themselves. It was an era when courageous European explorers sailed to a new world. They claimed their quest was for knowledge, wealth, and most nobly, to spread their beliefs. It all sounded so heroic. But a closer look reveals a different story. What was truly on the minds of the English, French, Spanish, and Dutch colonizers? Was it really as noble as they claimed? The reality is, their motivations were far simpler. Their primary drive was and always has been the same three things: money, money, and money. They didn't come to discover, they came to take. The Spanish, for example, were busy searching for gold and silver in the south and found immense wealth from existing civilizations. Meanwhile, in the north, the English and French saw other opportunities. There were valuable beaver pelts that were highly sought after in Europe. There was vast land that could be turned into tobacco and cotton plantations, generating huge profits. So, when they called it a holy mission, don't be fooled. It was a large-scale business operation with one single purpose: to line their pockets. The English, French, Spanish, and Dutch all saw the same pie, and no one was willing to share. They squabbled, accused each other, and eventually went to war, not to defend honor or justice, but to fight over territory that wasn't theirs. The colonizers used the native inhabitants as pawns in their battles, promising things they would never deliver. In the end, the English emerged as the winner, taking over territories previously controlled by the French and Spanish and becoming the new rulers of stolen land. Then they defected from King George III and changed their flag to 13 stars. And what about the original owners of this land? They were treated as an obstacle, a hindrance that had to be removed. At first, there were treaties. However, for the colonizers, these treaties were just a formality. As the United States expanded, its hunger for land grew. A promise could be broken whenever they needed more land. The treaties that were signed were often written in one-sided language or signed under duress. These promises were easily broken when the colonizers needed territory for new settlements. When the native inhabitants refused, they were labeled as savage, primitive, and uncivilized, and then oppressed. They were systematically eliminated. Their cultures were suppressed, and their land was taken by force. This was a deliberate erasure of history. Land was seized, villages burned, tribes forced to walk thousands of miles with no home waiting. over 60,000 native people were relocated by force in what became known as the Trail of Tears. Thousands died, and those who lived were told to forget everything they were. Children were taken from their families, placed in boarding schools where speaking their own language was a crime. Kill the Indian, save the man. That was the motto. Ceremonies were banned, sacred land sold, names changed by force. This wasn't assimilation. This was erasure, built into law, education, and belief.
It's important to remember
That behind every city, every field, and every highway, there is a story of uncontrolled ambition. A story about people who came to someone else's land, called it their own, and were willing to do anything to get it. It's a story not of bravery, but of greed. And that is a truth that cannot be hidden behind sanitized history books.